Hey, everybody. Welcome once again to another version of Journeys with Jack. I want to speak today about something that I enjoy doing as a pastime and also for exercise, and that's bicycling. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some trails I'd ridden in the Atlanta area and also West Georgia. So, in spring of 2024, I was working a job up there in East Cobb County and staying at the Marietta Hilton Hotel, and I had some great opportunities to ride a trail I really like, the Mountains to River Trail, which goes up through Marietta to Kennesaw Mountain. Now, the other direction goes down through some industrial area, past the Air Force Base, etc. That's not as pretty a section, so I'm going to concentrate on the northwesterly approach. So I would come out of the Hilton Hotel after work, especially with daylight savings time, and go right across Powder Springs Road and pick up the trail near the old cemetery. Now, it is interesting to turn south and go for a ways and stop in at the vintage clothing shop. Check out, well, not just clothing, but they got all kind of vintage stuff. So check out the photos on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, etc. So you carry on going north, you cross over a street by a elevated bridge and ride parallel to the railroad track up towards Glover Square in Old Marietta. Now, the square itself is very interesting. There's a beautiful old movie theater, well worth going to. I went to see Singing in the Rain there while I was visiting. Also, a good microbrewery, the Red Hare Brewery on the square, and then lots of interesting shops. But the road goes, the bicycle trail, I should say, goes parallel to the railroad. And then you come up to an area where you can cross over around the railroad. There's a metal bridge, and you kind of come down that, go over to the right, and along briefly Cherokee Street. You'd actually crossed over it via bridge, and then you can come left up through a neighborhood. Now, alternatively, you could go out Kennesaw Avenue and come in and meet the trail later on. So I'm going to tell you the advantages of both. If you change the trail up a little bit and go through Kennesaw Avenue, you see a lot of beautiful old homes, great architecture. If you go the other way, you ride through a more modern neighborhood, but you get to see a great piece of awesome folk art. Someone has gone to the trouble to paint a beautiful Allman Brothers picture memorial. It's a picture of the Allman Brothers logo mushroom with the words, "The road goes on forever." It was awesome, man. So I've got some pics of that in there too. So anyway, either way you go, you eventually converge back onto the main trail, go by a large mega church, and then kind of come up to Kennesaw Mountain. Well, that's where the terminus is. Kennesaw Mountain has a great museum, and it was the site of a major battle in the American Civil War. Fortunately, you can ride your bicycle up to the park and then onward up a paved road all the way to the top of the mountain for some great vistas and cannon and other odds and ends. So that's that trail. Well worth doing. If you ride it the way that I was outlining, you're probably doing, maybe about 6 miles one way. So maybe a little bit more. So it's a good after dinner ride. You can get in about 10, 12 miles in a day, and maybe after work ride before dinner. It just depends on your time course. Stop in at the square and check out some stuff. All right, let me move on to another fun trail in Atlanta that I had the opportunity of doing. And this was one that my good buddy Andy Reynolds turned me on to. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of roads around Atlanta. We'd gone to high school together, and he's a great fount of information. With his permission, I mention him today. He told me where I was working, I should drive down Johnson's Ferry Road towards the Chattahoochee River, and then go down Columns Drive to the end of it, where there is a large gravel parking lot and a big trail. You can go down this trail via bicycle, dodging the walkers, joggers, etc. So be careful. It's a popular place and gets a little bit crowded. But you ride along the Chattahoochee River, and then you come underneath the interstate and can pick up the Bob Callan Trail. Now, the Bob Callan Trail has several different turns, twists, and spurs, and you can get off in different directions. It goes parallel to Acres Mill Road some of the way, and then I turned up to the right and passed back through underneath the interstate, and when come up near where the Atlanta Braves Stadium is, it was once called SunTrust Park. I think it's Truist Park now. And you can carry on down a beautiful little gurgling stream. It's quite picturesque. Another good after dinner ride. This one had a lot of good memories for me. You can do it in about 2 hours or so, the way I just outlined. But my last job before medical school had been across Johnson Ferry Road at what was called the Johnson Ferry Outdoor Center raft rental place. Chattahoochee Outdoor Center, I think, was another name for it. That was a fun job, and that's kind of a series of trails that you could ride a bicycle or walk on as well. So I'd recommend it too. You really get a lot of action in one area. Now, while I was up there, I had the opportunity to attend a social event at the Piedmont Driving Club, so naturally I took my bicycle over there with me and thought I'd try out the Beltline. So the people at the club were very kind to me and let me leave my car parked there and change clothes indoors, and off I sat on my bike, and I went through Piedmont Park and went south. For somebody like me that grew up in Atlanta as a multi-generational native, there were a lot of places I saw that my folks had talked about, and I even saw my dad's old neighborhood around Kirkwood. And for me, it gave me the opportunity to divert off the trail and check out some things like the Carter Center, which was being built when I was in college back in the 1980s, and then to go into Virginia Highlands and around an old watering hole of mine, Moe's and Joe's, which supposedly is the oldest tavern in the city. I also took the time to check out the old Majestic restaurant, which dates back to the 1920s, and by the way, still has a fantastic hamburger. So I did learn about a new place while I was riding that trail, and it's called Ladybird. So apparently it's popular with students in the colleges up there, and hey, if I went to school at Georgia Tech or Georgia State, I can guarantee you that I would check the place out more often. It is really neat in that you can ride down the trail and pull right up to it, park your bike there, go in and get some delicious barbecue, etc. So I'm going to highly recommend it. Put out a shout. Another interesting place on that end of the trail is the Ponce Market, so I'm going to recommend that one too. Now, I came back out, rode through Piedmont Park again, and rode up in the direction of Ansley Park. And so coming up there, I detoured off of the trail over near Ansley Mall and went up to Smith's Old Bar to get some refreshment after the good trail ride. So that was a great trip too. Only one day I did that. But here's another one that I did multiple times, and it's called the Silver Comet Trail. I had first tried this trail out back in 2021 with my good buddy Jason Moore, so I'm going to put out a shout to him right now. Hey, Jason. Okay, so Jason and I go to church together, and he is a very avid bicyclist, and he had the idea that we should go up to Cedartown or parts around there and try out this great trail, Silver Comet. Well, initially we were going to go camping, but it got a little bit chilly, and so we wound up checking into a hotel. I think it was the Quality Inn in Cedartown, and they were super cool. They let us keep the bicycles in the room. And we got up early one morning and went down to where we knew there was a trail entrance over near the Cedartown Railroad. Now, this is cool. The old Cedartown Railroad station has a museum in and about all things of Cedartown. Okay, so it dealt with some old history like Native American pottery and arrowheads and what have you. But here was the showstopper. It had an exhibit on the voice of Winnie the Pooh. For all of you guys that are old like me, you probably remember back the old Walt Disney cartoons of Winnie the Pooh. Well, the high-pitched, squeaky voice of Winnie the Pooh was none other than Sterling Holloway, a native of, yes, you guessed it, Cedartown, Georgia, right there in, I believe, Polk County. And he had become famous as that voice, and they had all manner of Winnie the Pooh cartoons, memorabilia, records, etc. for him. So we actually took a good while checking that out before we got going on the trail. Ultimately rode about 80 miles that day, all the way to Alabama, where the trail continues but changes names to the Chief Ladiga Trail. Then we came back the other way, going through small towns, checking out beautiful rural scenes, crossing over some bridges, etc., and went through the Brushy, I think it's called Brushy Face Tunnel. Let me look. I made a note about it somewhere. Anyway, the Brushy Tunnel was along, I got it, Brushy Mountain Tunnel. Sorry about that, everybody. Anyway, we went through the Brushy Mountain Tunnel, And then after that, went over this giant trestle at a place called Pumpkin Vine Creek. Fabulous views, and the tunnel was great too. It was pretty cool. You go into the middle of it, it's almost pitch black. So coming out the other side and adding to our newfound visibility, we carried on, went over the trestle at Pumpkin Vine Creek, and in 2 days we rode the whole trail. Second day, rode all the way out to the trailhead at Smyrna, Georgia. Well, when I was working in East Cobb, I went back and started on the trail in Smyrna, Georgia, rode out Cobb County, Paulding County, etc. Now, the first go-round with Jason, I'd missed the covered bridge in Mableton, and I still don't think I saw it. But I did eventually go see the Red Caboose in Hiram, Georgia, which was quite a sight as well. So I'm going to give you one final trail that I'm checking out right now, and it's called the Fall Line Trace and Dragonfly Trail System. This is over in Columbus, Georgia, where I'm doing a job this spring. And I had the good fortune of being told how to get to it by some ladies at the office. And I went out and rode out the Fall Line Trace section, which goes parallel to Talbotton Road out by Warm Springs Road, passes by Hardaway High School and Columbus State University. Interesting, but not nearly as scenic as the other direction. If you come back and go down the Dragonfly Trace, which I did, or Dragonfly Trail, which I did from 10th Avenue near the hospital, it comes round 2 sides of the old historic Linton Cemetery in downtown Columbus and proceeds down to the river. It seems that I had about a 200-foot elevation change going down by the river, and this trail intersects, and actually I think the two are kind of the same for some of the way, the Riverwalk in downtown Columbus. So I went north and went way up by a dam and power company, which was interesting, and had some good scenery and great views across towards Alabama on the other side. Then I went down the trail and rode down past an old mill, which is now a restaurant, Mill House, and past some other old buildings that have been repurposed for lofts, etc. And then further down south past a naval museum and saw where there'd been some old steamship docks along the river. Now, I haven't fully traversed this whole trail, but I'm going to highly recommend it. I hope this gives you some ideas for when you're looking for things to do, go bicycling, etc. I'm just going to tell you, for me, I think the world looks better from a bicycle, probably from a boat too. All right, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, and I appreciate it. I hope this has helped you out in your travels. See you next time on Journeys with Jack.